Okay, so we'll continue on with number 3. Now, number 3 is different than the other two that we've done. It's also a quadratic, but we're going to have to factor that ourselves. So this we can factor with first and last, and this is one I know, and hopefully you recognize this. This is going to factor into x minus 3 times x plus 2 is less than 0. So I just did that with first and last in my head. Now, what I can do is I can separate these, and I have x minus 3 is 0, and x plus 2 is 0. And so I solve each one, and x is 3, and x is negative 2. And then we can go ahead and put 3 and negative 2 on a number line. Let's see, so I'll have negative 2 and then 3. And then we'll pick our test values. And remember to make things easy on yourself when you pick your test values. Let's go with negative 3, 0. 0 is always a nice option. And then 4. Okay. So I'm going to take these test values and plug them in. So let's see. I'll have negative 3 minus 3 times negative 3 plus 2. I'm just plugging them in for x. 0 minus 3 times 0 plus 2. And then 4 minus 3 times 4 plus 2. Okay, and then I want to go through and figure out if things are positive or negative. So negative 3 minus 3 is going to be a negative, and negative 3 plus 2 is negative, and negative times negative is positive. So it's positive to the left of negative 2. 0 minus 3 is negative. 0 plus 2 is positive. And negative times positive is negative. So it'll be negative in that zone between negative 2 and 3. 4 minus 3 is positive. And then 4 plus 2 is positive. So positive times positive is positive. Okay. So if we go back to the original problem, they wanted to know where it was less than 0 or where it was negative, and it's going to be negative in this region in the middle here between negative 2 and 3. So to write that for our answer, we would have negative 2 is less than x is less than 3. Okay, and so that's my answer to number 3. So we can go on to number 4. Let's see. So, for number 4, we have x squared plus 4x minus 5 is less than or equal to 0. Okay, so this is another one that we're going to have to factor on our own before we set things up. And so this is going to factor into x plus 5 times x minus 1, and that's less than or equal to 0. So if I separate my factors and set them each equal to 0, and then I can solve them, and so I get x is negative 5 and x equals 1. So then I'll go ahead and put those possible solutions on my number line. So I have negative 5 and 1. I'm going to pick my test values. And I'll do negative 6, I'll do 0, and I'll do 2. Okay. So let's see, we take our test values and we're going to plug those in. So I'm going to do, let's see, I'll do negative 6 plus 5 times negative 6 minus 1. So I'm just plugging them in for x. So I've got 0 plus 5 times 0 minus 1, and 2 plus 5 times 2 minus 1. Okay, so then I want to go through and figure out if things are positive or negative. So negative 6 plus 5 is negative. Negative 6 minus 1 is negative. Negative times negative is a positive. 0 plus 5 is positive. 0 minus 1 is negative. Positive times negative is negative. And so we're negative in the middle. 2 plus 5 is positive. 2 minus 1 is positive. So positive times a positive is positive, okay? The original problem, we wanted to know where we were less than or equal to 0. So that means negative or equal to 0. And that's going to be in this middle zone here. So to write that out with our inequality signs, we'll say negative 5 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 1. And so that's our answer there. The reason why I use less than or equal to to write out that answer is because the original problem had a less than or equal to, right? So when you have the line underneath your inequality sign in the original problem, you'll go ahead and include that in your answer. All right, so we'll go on to number 5. So for number 5, we have a cubic. We have x minus 4 times x plus 4 times x plus 3. And this is less than 0. And I know it's a cubic because it has 3 factors. And so if I go ahead and multiply it out, my greatest exponent on x will be 3. So it'll be degree of 3. So if I take each one of these factors and set it equal to 0, and then go ahead and solve them, I'll get x is 4, and then here I'm going to minus 4. X is negative 4, and x is negative 3, right? So I'm going to put all of those on a number line. So I'm going to have a few more zones to try out here. So let's see. I'm going to have negative 4, negative 3, and 4, okay? So I've got to pick my, you know what? I'm going to need more room for this. I'm going to take up a whole thing because we've got more zones here for this one. All right, so we'll take up the whole page for this. So let's see. So we have negative 4, negative 3, and 4. So for test values, let's see. I'll do negative 5. So these are my TV or my test values. I'll do negative 3.5. We'll have to pick something halfway between or in the middle, and that's the best I can come up with. We'll do 0, and then we'll do 5. And so we'll break these up. Okay, so then we're going to take these test values and plug them in for our x. So I'm going to have negative 5 minus 4. And let's see, negative 5 plus 4 and negative 5 plus 3. And then I'll have negative 3.5 minus 4, negative 3.5 plus 4, and negative 3 plus, or negative 3.5 plus 3. All right, and then I'll have 0 minus 4, 0 plus 4, and 0 plus 3. And then I'll have 5 minus 4, 5 plus 4, and 5 plus 3. So now we'll go through and figure out if things are positive or negative. So negative 5 minus 4 is negative, negative 5 plus 4 is negative, and negative 5 plus 3 is also negative. So negative times a negative is a negative. So we're negative in that range. Negative 3.5 minus 4 is negative, negative 3.5 plus 4 is positive, and negative 3.5 plus 3 is negative. So negative times negative times positive, we've got 2 negatives there. That's going to turn into a positive. So we're positive there. 0 minus 4 is negative, 0 plus 4 is positive, and 0 plus 3 is positive. So 1 negative there, so that zone is going to be a negative, right? A negative times a positive is negative, okay? And then 5 minus 4 is positive, and 5 plus 4 is positive, and 5 plus 3 is positive. So positive times positive is all positive. So we're positive in that last zone there. Now, the original problem asked us where we were less than 0. So less than 0, that means where are we negative? And so we're negative here to the left of negative 4, and then between negative 3 and 4. So we want to write that out with inequalities. So we can say x is less than negative 4, or we're between negative 3 and 4. So negative 3 less than x less than 4. And that's your answer for number 5. Okay, so we'll go on to number 6. So for number 6, we have another cubic. So we have 3 factors again. So I have x plus 5 times x plus 1 times x minus 3 is greater than 0. So if we take each factor, set it equal to 0, and now we're going to solve. So minus 5 minus 5, x is negative 5, minus 1, x is negative 1, add 3, x is 3. And then we'll go ahead and we'll plot all of these on our number line. So I have negative 5, negative 1, and 3, okay? And then we want to pick our test values. So we'll do negative 6. We'll do a negative 2. We'll do 0. And we'll do 4. Okay, so I'm going to take these test values and plug them in for x. So I've got, let's see, negative 6 plus 5, negative 6 plus 1, and negative 6 minus 5. And then I plug in negative 2 plus 5, negative 2 plus 1, and then negative 2 minus 5. And then I'll plug in 0 plus 5, 0 plus 1, and then 0 minus 5. And then I'll plug in 4, and I'll have 4 plus 5 times 4 plus 1 times 4 minus, that last one should be 3. I made a mistake throughout. Okay, hold on, let me change this. So this should be 3. Let's see. I just copied it down wrong when I was writing it in. And then this last one, this is a 3, and then this is 4 minus 3. Okay, so now we can go ahead and figure out if things are positive or negative. So negative 6 plus 5, I'm starting right here on the left side at the very beginning. Negative 6 plus 5 is a negative. Negative 6 plus 1 is a negative, and negative 6 minus 3 is a negative. So 3 negatives multiplied out gives us a negative, okay? So we're negative in that first zone on the left. Negative 2 plus 5 is a positive. Negative 2 plus 1 is a negative. Negative 2 minus 3 is a negative. So I've got 2 negatives here, so that means my answer is going to be positive. 0 plus 5 is a positive. 0 plus 1 is a positive, and 0 minus 3 is a negative. So I have 1 negative there, so that's going to be negative, okay? And then 4 plus 5 is a positive. 4 plus 1 is a positive. And then 4 minus 3 is a positive, so 3 positives, so we'll be positive there. So the original problem wanted to know where we were greater than 0, so where are we positive? So we're positive in this zone here between negative 5 and negative 1, and then to the right of 3. So we've got to write that out with an inequality. So what that will look like is negative 5 is, let's see, is it less than? Okay. Negative 5 is less than x is less than negative 1, or x is greater than 3. So that is your answer to the last classwork problem. And so hopefully you're able to try out the homework problems on your own.